I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on whose land we meet today. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and also to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So it's wonderful to see so many of our ENFP community today. My name is Kim Kellaway, I'm Head of Clients and Markets at HLV Manager, and on behalf of the team at HLV Manager, the ENFP Strategic Alliance, the Commonwealth Bank, I welcome you all. So today we are very fortunate to have the newly appointed ACNC Commissioner Sue Woodward and Mel Yates, Director of Financial Reporting, presenting an update from the ACNC. So I'd now like to hand it over to Aidan Smith.
Thank you, Kim. It's my honour today to welcome Sue and Mel to present us. So a bit of bios on each of them. So Sue can introduce you each. Sue Woodward is here. She commenced at the ACNC on December the 12th, and previously Sue was Chief Advisor for not-for-profit law with Charity Justice Connect. So Sue is a member of the Order of Australia, awarded in 2021 for significant service to the not-for-profit sector, fundraising and law. So Sue has played an instrumental role with the ACNC. Sue was involved way back when the ACNC was formed and served as the inaugural Director of Policy and Education during the early years of the Commission. Sue has also been involved in a number of leadership bodies, the Charities Crisis Cabinet, Petroleum Government and Volunteer Strategy Task Force today. And Sue has also contributed to the governance of organisations, which is sitting boards of the Victorian Council of Social Service, the Human Rights Law Centre, and the Australian Communities Foundation. Sue is also an academic at Melbourne Law School and has made contribution to reform of the regulation of the charity sector with a 2004 research report, which just connects what not-for-profit law service was established back in 2008 based on Sue's research. Sue also a staunch supporter of reducing unnecessary regulation obligations in the sector. I think everyone is very happy with that. So yes, that's just a few things that Sue has done. So very much to Sue. And we also have Mel here. So Mel is a collection of reporting from charities with a focus on reducing unnecessary regulatory obligations and ensures that the ACNC has sound corporate governance arrangements. So Mel has been with the ACNC since 2016, and prior to this, Mel was at the ATO for a decade, internal policy and assurance, as well as other operational, financial management and government tax management roles. So Mel also, when he finished university, he worked in England. Worked in England for a while as a social services finance role. Mel began his career at a large professional services firm and has worked with the Victorian government in a finance role. So we've got two very qualified people to speak to us today. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Sue and Mel to this today.
I would like to also acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and any elders in the room today. It is a great privilege to be here, to see people I know in the sector, to also support people that advise the sector, because that is a very important role and has a big ripple effect. Make sure I've got the slide right. Mel and I are going to do a tag team. So I will do a little bit and you will do some, and then we'll finish up, and we're very happy to take as many questions as we can in the time we have. So some of you will know some of this, so be patient, some of you won't, and hopefully it's just a bit overview. The ACNC does not actually regulate non-profits. It's a bit of a sort of thing when we have a name that has it in it. What we do is we register charities, and each year we register about 3,000 charities. We maintain a register, and I think that's really at the core of everything we do, because that register provides public trust and confidence that our whole regulatory model is based on. And at the moment, there are about 60,000 charities on the register. We also look into concerns and we handle the annual reporting of charities. And it is important, I think, that there is a place that people will have concerns about what's happening in a registered charity country. We also have advice, guidance and education, and that's a really big part of our regulatory approach, the biggest part of our regulatory pyramid. And our website gets about 41 million views a year. And to searches, that is now about 5 million using the register. As is said, Mel and I are, I don't know if red tape warriors is quite the expression, but we are keenly always looking to any red tape opportunity, reduction opportunities. And I can't help but say I'm particularly pleased about the fundraising awards being your point and the promises there, but we can come back to that. Other thing around, okay. Just to give you a bit of a scope of where we fit into the ecosystem, obviously everyone would understand every charity has to be a not-for-profit, but there's a much bigger sector beyond the charity sector, and that is what the slide shows. And only a smaller number of charities are deductible gift recipients, so get that tax deduction. And that is the role of the ATO to make that determination. But we have one system with a single registration process. Just to give a bit of an overview, because we are in New South Wales, and we're putting out our normal charity report in May. This is part of the Commission's commitment to not just collecting the data and putting it on the shelf, but to put publicly back out to the sector and to the public. So the sector has information about the trends and size and what's happening. And in New South Wales, it seems that pretty much the proportion of charities registered in New South Wales is pretty much the proportion of the percentage of the Australian population in New South Wales, as this slide shows. About 28% are advancing revenue. And I think a really important factor for the Commission when we think about who we're regulating and how we do it, nearly 31% of all charities in New South Wales are very small. That's with less than $50,000 in annual income. And at the other end of the spectrum, there's some that are very, very large, 100 million or more in revenue. And these charities hold about 45% of the overall revenue for registered New South Wales charities. So I think again, you know, there's 60,000 charities. We have about 110 staff, and we're regulating entirely volunteer-run, tiny micro organisations, right through to global, international charities with very sophisticated numbers, revenue and staff. So I think we can that now. So I'm going to do a little dance here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I also pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and I welcome anyone who identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander who is here today. So, Sue's already mentioned our focus on red tape reduction, and some good news is that we have achieved a streamlined reporting for both incorporated associations and fundraisers in New South Wales. And that enables those organisations to report directly to the ACNC. We share that information with the state regulator in New South Wales, which is a good outcome. It saves organisations the lodgement fees, it saves the effort and resources in preparing separate returns, and thankfully, from the 2022 annual information statement, we have incorporated the statement of compliance which relates to fundraisers into the annual information statement. So the way we implement the streamlined reporting arrangements is that they are optional. So if organisations want to take advantage of that streamlined reporting, the obligation is to provide the necessary information that our state and territory counterparts require. It needs to be provided in the annual information statement so that we can share it with them. So it is optional, but that is the only mechanism and the only way that we can actually facilitate that report once used of the framework that we have worked so hard to achieve. Now, thankfully, across all states and territories. So in terms of some of the reporting changes which are happening, and it's still flowing through the charity sector. So some have occurred, some are about to take effect in reporting. We had a change to the charity size thresholds. Now, this came into the AIS of last year. So we saw quite a significant increase in the revenue thresholds. So that is a red tape reduction initiative as well, because it means that there are a number of organisations who previously had to prepare financial statements and had a little bit more obligation as part of the AIS. They now fall into the small size charity category, and we had some large charities that now fall into the medium size. So the increasing of those thresholds sees several thousand organisations effectively get a reduction in their obligations to us. That has occurred, as I said, in the last annual information statement in 2022. And we also saw another change that only relates to smaller organisations, and that was the statement of resource and commitments. We had a situation, yes, whereby we effectively collected accrual information from charities, but smaller size charities are allowed to use cash accounting. So there wasn't a perfect alignment of the reporting obligations that we collected with the way organisations were actually managing their finances. So that was a change which was also implemented last year, but again, that only relates to smaller size charities. That is organisations with revenue of below 500,000 per annum. Now, moving on, one of the more significant changes that we have seen last year relates to large size charities only, and that was the introduction of key management personnel remuneration reporting. So many organisations were already meeting these requirements. If they were preparing general purpose financial statements, then the requirements around these disclosures were already are already mandated and are already part of reporting. But this extension of those arrangements related to organisations which may have been preparing special purpose financial statements. So we've seen a broadening of the collection of that information in aggregate. So charities need to provide a total for all key management personnel, whether they be responsible persons or whether they are executives of the organisation. And there's a whole lot of, a whole lot of criteria that attach itself to what is a key management personnel. And we have developed a lot of guidance on our website. So I encourage you to have a look at that if you're not familiar with that. We have found it really beneficial speaking with particular stakeholders, such as yourselves, who have the familiarity with certain charities and the intricacies of the operations of those organisations. So we have refined that guidance, and that's been really, really helpful. So if you do have a look at that guidance and you find that there's something that you think could be improved or additional examples would help, I'd love to hear from you. And you can contact me through him, through Aidan, through any of our colleagues here who are hosting today's event. And I'd be really keen to have a chat about what we might need to do to improve that. The big, looking forward, the really big thing which is about to start in the 2023 annual information statement is related party transactions reporting. So again, for some organisations who were preparing special purpose financial statements, they haven't needed to comply with these requirements. They are new. This is coming into effect as a result of the review of our legislation, which occurred many years ago, and the government then provided an outline of which recommendations supported. And so we have been working to implement some of these things in line with government requirements. So for related party transaction disclosures, we have just finished a consultation process. So for those of you who are, I've seen a couple of nods, for those of you who are aware of that, thank you very much if you did participate in that process. It's been really valuable for us to get an understanding of how we should be implementing this change so that it is meaningful in terms of the data that is collected, without imposing too much regulatory impost on organisations. So what we will be doing is we are still finalising the consultation outcomes and working through the feedback that we got. And I'll just move to the next slide, which is specifically about related party transactions. We're still working through finalising that, but when we get to a point where we know the questions and what we're going to ask and how we're going to ask it, we will be sharing that information very broadly, because this is a very big change for the sector, and we appreciate that there is a need for a lot of guidance and a lot of support to be provided to the sector in order to digest this new reporting requirement. So again, I would encourage you to please have a look at the guidance. We've included the links to the guidance, which is on our website at the moment. Have a look at it, work through that. If there is anything that you think could be refined, I'd be really, really keen to hear from you about how we can improve that to make it easier for yourselves, your clients to be able to meet these new obligations. I should point out that this change of collecting related party transactions, it does apply to all sized charities. Now, because medium and large sized charities have to prepare financial statements, we have aligned the definitions around accounting standards because they already apply to those charities. The smaller sized charities that are not mandated to prepare financial statements, what we've done is we've created a simplified definition of a related party to try and make it a little bit easier for those, but for that cohort, those size entities which predominantly are supported by volunteers and don't have any paid staff. We've tried to strike the right balance between collecting the information that we need without undue impost on those organisations. And I think I might hand back to the boss, and I'll do my little shuffle.
Thanks, Mel. Obviously, right at the moment, politics is probably topical in this debate. So I don't know if it's slightly late in the piece, but we have got guidance about advocacy. It's been there for a while. It's there obviously for the last federal election, and it's pretty simple. It's really about, it's really absolutely fine, good and appropriate for charities to advocate. The only thing to remember is it needs to be done for a charitable purpose, and not in a way that means, you know, placards supporting a particular political party or a particular candidate. But it's completely fine, for example, to do a ranking system. You might want to take all the parties on their policies and then say which one has some policies that most align with the advocacy because they're doing it for charitable purpose. So that's all set out very clearly in the guidance that we already have. And we put up additional guidance on two areas. But on the advocacy point, just taking that through, we've just recently put out specific guidance around the proposed referendum and the voice to Parliament to make it as clear as possible what that means for charities and what they can do. We did go uphill and down a little bit. At one point we were going to have something quite a bit longer with some examples, but it then became too long. So I went with the approach with like a one pager. We could read that 60,000 charities could read if they wanted to. And again, same message, but what is your charitable purpose and what's what activity might you want to do? Now, if an organisation simply wants to make a statement of support, whether that be for or against, and that statement's there, then that of itself is not going to be anything that the Commissioner is concerned about. And as we try to clearly get across, the advocacy is appropriate, and there will be situations when a charity will want to advocate in relation to the referendum on the voice. We've also, before Christmas, much to my daughter's surprise, I was an expert in cryptocurrency. And so we did put out some guidance when there was the latest crash in relation to cryptocurrency, because there are charities that are now being approached about making receiving donations in crypto assets. And I don't know if anyone in this room has had that experience, but it's not just a large organisation. Sometimes it can be quite small organisations. And again, the view that I took is that it's not appropriate for us to try and micromanage 60,000 organisations, but to simply put out guidance which fit an explainer about what's involved, to identify that obviously it can be very high risk, and that it reminding people that in terms of their responsibilities, it's about responsible financial management. And that's not, there are many ways that can be taken to mitigate the risks associated with accepting those donations, and then taking the money and doing the charitable purpose. So it's not in any way intended to be a sort of blanket, don't do it. That's not appropriate. Each organisation needs to consider its own risk. And obviously the risk associated with investing in crypto assets is a different level to what you can do around accepting donations. And that's really just, I think, our role as a commission to try and keep up to date and sometimes even ahead of what are the financial sector of safety. And I'll be very keen to hear Hayden's observation. And if there are things that are coming your way that you think we can add value on, that we'd be very keen to hear. So it's not that we will be the experts in cryptocurrency, quite obviously not. We're not the experts in cyber security, we're not the experts on a whole range of things, but they are factors that are relevant to the organisations that we're supporting to be registered charities. In that sense of how we support charities, we've got an e-learning program, and that's a slide about some of the modules. There's 12 modules. It's really aimed probably more for small and medium organisations. It's free, it's self-paced. They're mostly on topics associated with the ACNC in particular, and trying to give people another way of getting information to support their understanding of whether they want to register, what they have to do to stay to be registered, and other governance type issues that they'll come across. I know Mel's mentioned at least one of these things, so please feel free to have a look there. And we're always interested to get any feedback on our resources and how we can improve. Just a little bit on the year ahead. There's quite a lot on the agenda. Many of you will be waiting in favour, I'm sure, for much talked about Commission's interpretation statement on public benevolent institutions. So that's Commission's interpretation statements have been a long practice of the Commission, where the Commission gives guidance around how the Commission will interpret the law in a particular area. And as the Commissioner, that's now down to me. And there has been extensive consultation on this key statement. There has been case law that we need to consider. It's actually a grey area. It is nuanced. It is, you probably won't have any, no one will be completely happy with whatever comes out. And it is certainly very much in the front of my mind as something that will come out shortly. There is a case currently where we're waiting for a decision, which might mean that you're not alter the position, but it seems a bit silly to put out a statement and then a couple of weeks later with another decision. So we just kind of balance all that in terms of getting that statement out. Some of you might know me, I know at least a couple of people in this room have known me over many years, will know that I have been a passionate person about harmonising the fundraising laws. And while it's not done yet, because the states still need to make changes to implement the 16 national principles that they've agreed on, I do think it's a moment in time, and I'm really pleased to be at the ACNC where we can support the implementation of that reform in a way that reduces red tape. So not only will there be national principles, so saying applicable in every state and territory, but when we combine that with the reporting once union and model that we've got, I think we can say that finally for a small charity just need to put a donate button on their website, they will actually know what they need to do ethical fundraising. And I personally think that's pretty cool. The Productivity Commission inquiry into philanthropy was obviously a government initiative, and we have recently met with the Productivity Commission. It's really useful conversation, and we'll keep engaging with them. We did actually lose one of our staff members to their team. You know, we're trying to play nicely in the sandpit with other agencies. And I think this is another part where we as the ACNC can look at how can we support something as vital for the sector as, you know, increasing funding, basically. Double giving, obviously there's a flow through effect for all the charities that we regulate. So we've had conversations and we'll be interested to see, and I'm going to urge any of you involved in charities and advising charities to think about what would be helpful, and we've got very broad exclusive reference, and I know they're really keen to get as many submissions as possible. I think they're due May. Yeah, so a bit of a plug for putting in a submission, and we'll be putting one as well, which we'll have available on our website as soon as we can. The DGR register reform, this is something where the registers were previously held in different government departments, and now in a streamlined way they're becoming supposed to be administered by the ATO. The ATO, who are the determiners of that tax status, the deductible status, and therefore it is for them to have the register. It will still mean that we operate in a combined way, so to the extent you know, we'll pass the information to them to make those assessment skills to determine their eligibility of a charity, and they'll then determine the DGR aspect. And lastly, some of you might know, and you know, I'm not speaking on behalf of the tax office, but it is a relevant factor for charities and those that might need to be charities. So there is not-for-profits can currently self-assess their income tax exemption status, and then now will be required to submit a review to show that they've done that. And as part of that initiative, which comes in next year, it will mean that some organisations realise that they're not eligible to self-assess, and that might mean it's because they're eligible to be a charity, in which case they may choose to come and register with the ACNC. Or they may just want to come to us to be sure and establish that they're not eligible, and therefore they can still self-assess. So there's a link there, and we're working very closely with the tax office to make sure the implementation of this reform is as seamless as possible. It probably means we do have, out of 146,000 self-assessing not-for-profits, only a small percentage of those come to us. We've got some work coming our way. And we'll be doing our very best to make sure that they're supported when they come, possibly never having even heard of the ACNC before, and possibly they're quite small organisations. So very mindful of that pre-normalising as well. So I think probably that's all from us. And as I say, we're very happy to take questions, and thank you again for welcome today and for the work that you do.
Thanks, Nell, for that. What we'll do is we'll raise your hand. Before we do that, I've got the microphone just now. A couple of questions that I can ask, and also some people actually moving advanced questions as well that we'll ask a few of those as well. So first about this, you mentioned the PBIs, and what we've seen is that the ACNC and also the ATO much more active look at the PBIs, whether they're eligible to be PBI. And the EVR, the EVR status attached to that as well. Is that something that you're seeing? In fact, the ATO, have you seen that as a lot more active, that the ATO and the CNC mentioned?
So it's working, thank you. So the ACNC, we do have a project that we were given to by government and funding for, and that is to review 2% of the DGRs on our register in the year. No, Jonathan, if I've got this wrong. And we've been doing that in a variety of ways. Initially, the focus was on PBIs because they're the biggest category of DGRs. And now we've had more than a couple of years where we're doing a different focus, where some of it's on about 50% of that is on PBIs and then 50% on the non-PBI DGRs. I don't normally use all these acronyms, but I know this you understand it, but please say enjoy. And you know, I was in the meeting just the other day, because we've now had a few years of experience, and we did get, you know, in some ways quite robust feedback from the sector about how it's working. We're really reassessing how we do it, making sure that it's very risk-based, like it's a really impressive formula, you know, cross tabulations of, you know, things that might mean that we should focus on those particular organisations initially. You know, it might be that they don't have a government document in place, or that, you know, there's some other thing. And now we've had the experience, we can actually identify and do that in a way that's much more considered than, say, random audits. I think infrastructure.
Thank you. The other question I had, I think the biggest round of applause today, regarding the youth on IMC, you mentioned the fundraising for and with the advances that have taken place there, and it's great to see that. But what comes next in relation to that?
Well, Mel and I've probably got a sort of wish list. I think, you know, we're really keen to support states and territories in any way we can, maybe as a central agency of sorts, to, you know, facilitate them coming together. I think having finally worked together so well, I finally agreed is personally, I want to support them to keep that momentum going, to look at other things. So part of it will be the actual implementation of the fundraising reforms. It could be to do with incorporated associations. It could be to do with charitable trusts. All the things that are still in the remit of the state governments that affect the sector. I think, you know, we're keen to, even if it's just convene meetings or use our data to help inform them about where there are issues, to give them feedback, even when, you know, when we're sharing data, we can explain the sort of trends we see. I don't know, Mel, sorry, but
Yeah, no, the only thing I would add to that is we did release a paper, I think it was in 2016, which seems an eternity ago, which talked about a single definition of charity. So most of, or all levels of government, Commonwealth, state, territory, there are different definitions of charity. So the traction that we have got has not been great, but that is an area that we would love to explore to try and streamline or reduce the number of definitions of charity that are used throughout different pieces of legislation that apply to not-for-profits and charities, to try and make that maze a bit simpler so that organisations understand whether they do or don't qualify as a charity. And the premise of that paper, when it was written, was that we would leave, obviously, each state and territory to determine what concessions, what exemptions, what benefits an organisation would get. But we would love to see the Charities Act, which is an Australian piece of legislation, we would love to see that used as the basis to determine charitable status. And then it would be up to other jurisdictions to agree what benefits an organisation would get if they were deemed to be a charity. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of possibilities, but it requires obviously cooperation across different levels of government. And as Sue said, it really focuses on making data available, making sure that other governments have visibility of the information that we have in order to allow them to be more effective regulators without needing to ask for information and without needing to burden the sector.
Right, thank you both for that. Because mentioned earlier, a couple of questions that came in from members beforehand. The first one, it's before we actually worked. It's ASIC. Right, so this is recorded. It's been recorded. ASIC is doing great work. Back to me. So ASIC, question about what you direction responsible persons and updating information for the ACNC And ASIC, the companies obviously have their records, and there's obviously confusion when ASIC say people want to be done, and people some charities are updating record of ASIC, some aren't, they're all updating with ACNC. What's the register? Thank you.
I might start off, and Sue can add to me. This is a very long-standing source of angst. So right from the start of the ACNC, when we were established, there was, this became very prominent very quickly. We have tabled in our annual reports the issues that we've had, so people are aware, and our masters politicians are aware of these issues. The Commonwealth Government does have a piece of reform underway to try and improve business registers across the Commonwealth. So it's not clear exactly when or how we will get a suitable solution, but we are working very hard behind the scenes to try and use this process to enable a solution to be found, so that when the ASIC register is effectively switched off and it becomes part of this reformed business registry, that we will have a solution in place whereby charities won't see that difference of information between ASIC and between the ACNC. But unfortunately, at the moment, we know that this is still an issue. We know, particularly from a banking perspective, organisations do have to continually impress upon financial organisations, lenders, bankers, that the ASIC register is not the source of truth. It is actually the ACNC register. In case anyone doesn't know, we do have letters that have been co-signed between ASIC and the ACNC that we can share, that can be provided to banks, which are from ASIC and us, that state, don't look at the ASIC register, look at the ACNC register, because that is the obligation for organisations that are charities to keep their responsible people and their contact details and everything up to date. And we know that organisations are so frustrated with the current status quo that if they pay the fee and lodge a paper form, ASIC will update the register. And that's a really awful outcome for charities, because it's a waste of resources. And at the end of the day, we are one government. So we're very aware that it's a problem. We are working to try and resolve it, but we are one stakeholder in a very, very broad cross-governmental program of work. So it is going to take time. I can't categorically tell you when it will be resolved, but we are giving everything that we can to try to resolve it in the pipeline of work that is going to happen.
That's great. That letter, joint letter, it's actually across the situation a year or two ago, where there's a director who resigned as director of a charity years before. So not an ACNC, but still an ASIC bank. This person was trying to get a loan at the bank. The bank went, no, can't, because you want the director here. So it costs a lot of things. It's good that we've got that. The additional, so when you mentioned the ACNC, the resource we've got, also now talk about the ACNC website, and don't want to do myself out of a job here, but often people ask me a question. The answer to me is that's a good is look at the ACNC website. It's actually one of the better of the best websites that are out there. You can look at, when I was talking about related parties, it's a great section on related parties, what's related party transaction, who can imagine how much to know. There's all sorts of company charity sizes, what charity sizes, the websites are great sources of information. Look at trading modules as well. They're actually great to remind you of stuff that you might have forgotten. So it's a bigger round of applause for me on the ACNC website. It's a fantastic.
If it went a website meeting before, that's not you.
Well, that's what you're getting excited. The last question before, so ever get to caps on because we have time for Q&A from the floor. But the other question we got from one of our members beforehand is, when the ACNC posts a chat, in this particular set of annual statements, is there anything particular that you're looking at, or is it in general just crediting charity?
So we do have a program of work where we do look at a sample of financial reports that we receive. We basically look for compliance with accounting standards, with the auditing standards, with the review standards, depending on the level of assurance that has been required. One of the most common issues that we see is that an organisation won't include that it is a not-for-profit entity. There'll be no reference to the ACNC Act, and they're very, very fundamental, very basic things. The other things that we look at are, depending on the type of financial report, have the adequate disclosures been made around related party transactions, key management personnel, those sorts of things. Is the audit report attached? So we do get a large number of financial reports that are submitted that don't have any assurance element attached. And the majority of issues that we identify will go back to the charity. And it is literally a case that an incorrect file has been uploaded and it's resolved within a very short time frame. But that's the sort of review that we do. We use that process to inform us about improvements to our guidance, but also to share in forums such as this and through dedicated sort of financial reporting channels and networks and events, particularly with the likes of yourselves who are supporting the sector, some of the things that we're picking up and some of the issues that really need to be addressed. So some of the issues I would say are minor in nature, unintended, and can be quickly resolved. But there are some more fundamental things, particularly that support trust and confidence. So if an organisation submits its financial statements and a financial statement is missing, or the audit report hasn't been signed, or it's a draft version, things like that, they can really start to impact trust and confidence, because we do have a lot of media, for example, stakeholders, the public, donors who are looking at the register, who want to understand information about charities. And quite often when they identify something like that the balance sheet's missing, that charity's trying to hide something. What's going on here? Why haven't they included their balance sheet? It can really undermine trust and confidence. And the whole premise of having the register is to provide, I guess, a platform to help support trust and confidence. So the intent of the reviews that we do are to try and help charities identify where they need to improve their financial reporting and pick up things that we can update on the website. We have a checklist as well that I would really encourage you to look at. So that checklist is designed for organisations just to work through, have we included this? Have we done that? Have we met that requirement? It's very straightforward. I would really commend that to you to make sure that some of those more minor issues are not occurring. Thank you.
So that check is that something in ACNC website? It's a standard deviation. Questions from the floor. We've got moving microphones. We've got microphones. Anyone else any questions? Raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone over so the whole room can hear. Hello. Next time. Thanks.
Hi, Michelle Conway from Reach Australia. Could we go back to the New South Wales fundraising legislation and the recent changes there, and what we stick to the ACNC, and what we have to still publish our environmental statements? We've had some conflicting advice and just not really able to get clear on that to make sure that we're still, fulfilling our obligations to New South Wales.
So this is something that we have had asked quite a bit, because there is a little bit of confusion. So what we introduced into the 2022 annual information statement was the statement of compliance. So organisations who fundraise in New South Wales can use that mechanism to declare that they are compliant with the requirements, and that is all that needs to be done. What I might do is I might also share, and if I can, I'll send it to Kim, if that's okay. I'll just I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but I will share some information with you that I would like circulated to everyone that's here, which really details, I guess, the steps that need to be followed and what that means in practice, because we have had a little bit of back and forth to clarify with New South Wales Office of Fair Trading about this. So I think that's the better way to deal with it, is that if I share that, it'll be clear. You'll have the links, the website to New South Wales, the links to our information, and that will basically package that up, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Another question then.
Thank you, Nigel Corn, Finance in New South Wales. Firstly, it's a pleasure to actually meet you both face to face, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, which is, I guess, reinforcing the fact you are really helping the industry and putting out your hand to say, let's cut down the red tape. And the services you're offering are certainly well received. The question I had is, you mentioned that there are 60,000 registered charities that I'm aware of. What was interesting is to hear there are 3,000 new additions every year. I think that 60,000 has been relatively stable, and that led me to think that you must be losing about 3,000 a year as well. And given the challenging times we've had over the last few years, understanding your remit that ACNC would not be to go and make opinions, I guess, about how people should run a charity. Well, governance it would be, but not whether they should exist or not. I'm wondering if you want to share a personal view as to, do we have too many charities being organised, and possibly with these challenging times, merged so that there is a bigger focus, acquisitions, maybe some shouldn't exist, so there's a bigger focus on a fit for purpose would be highlighted as maybe a new governance issue?
Thank you for the question and the work that you do. That's a very important area. What I would say on this is the number of charities we register in here might vary between 10,500 to 20,000, as I understand it. There are also charities that come off the register voluntarily often because they wind up, they finish what they're doing, they no longer exist. There are some that a small number that we take off each year to do investigations and compliance action. And there are some that are also revoked because they just stop reporting to it. And, after many warnings and offers of support, we revoke them. Because that register has to be up to date, accurate, to have any integrity and support public trust and confidence. And look, if they go off and then they come back on, then they can reapply for that. So that's why, as you say, the number stays fairly stable. It has gone up a bit slowly over the 10 years, but it's not like a big jump every year. I don't think it is the place of the commission. There's no statutory power, and I don't actually think it is the mission of us to, say, oh, there's too many charities, they should be merging, and somehow try and put pressure on that. I think the beauty of our civil society is that it is exactly that, and there'll be charity on the charity register, but I might not read it, but that's the range that you have. But again, the register and now the enhanced search capability, I think when it comes to charities looking to work together on projects, whether that's the end of a merger or a takeover, or it's a sort of shared services model, or that again, hopefully we can play that infrastructure role in giving people a mechanism to look at who might be the right organisations to collaborate with or work with. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say is that we do have a large number of people that make contact with the ACNC who want to find out, I want to start a charity, what do I need to do? And that's an opportunity, as Sue was saying, for us to say, there is a register, have a look at the register. There might be an organisation that is doing that in your area that has the same purpose. And quite often we find that when people do a bit of research with the register and they understand the obligations attached with setting up a charitable organisation, they actually decide there are obligations. I think it would be better that we partner with another organisation, or I'm going to give some, some money to set up a particular trust or something within another organisation. So that definitely is, it's part of our DNA for the people that support stakeholders, people that bring up wanting that information about starting an organisation. That is very much embedded into their work. And the other thing I'd comment, as Sue was saying, we don't have a view, but it is interesting when you look at sort of comparisons per capita with other OECD countries, and we actually don't have as many charities per person as many other OECD countries. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't have a comment, but it's just interesting to look at that comparison.
Any other questions? Yes.
In relation to the ACNC and some relationship with Centrelink, from what I understand, if someone is eligible to volunteer for charity, they've got to comply with 15 hours for that degree. Secondly, we don't have a register of the charities where people can volunteer. Could there be more liaison between the ACNC and Centrelink to confirm what charities are operating in certain postcodes and where those people may be able to volunteer?
It's a great question. I've never had that question before. So I'm not going to take it on notice, but in 5 minutes, I think often when charities describe their activities and they do there is a thing about the number of volunteers they have. So the information is there. So if you were thinking of volunteering from an organisation, you could say, oh, they already have, volunteers or whatever. So that would be included. We are limited about what information we can actually ask charities for. So under our Act, there are strict limits that have to be linked to what would be an accessible and personal activity club. But there's also the red tape. Lots of information you might be interested in. Volunteering, box might be one of them. It might be interesting to have, the gender makeup of the board, or if we get a lot of people saying, oh, this research would be fantastic to collect this data. Not only do we get limits under the Act, but also really conscious of that red tape burden. So I think the simple answer is, to some extent, the information is already there. I'm very much interested in the national volunteering strategy that's been launched by Volunteering Australia. I was at their conference in Canberra in February. So if as part of that strategy, if the government takes a broader review, there might be something that comes our way out of that we can provide that support. I mean, there are volunteering acting services, which is another option, but not on by us.
Second question, which one your charity is supported by a philanthropist or a discussion trust, and then nominated to charities and push that leads to you a lot of funding.
It's a grant, someone's got to be first of me.
So the answer to that, as far as I can determine, sorry, I'm writing a note about your first question, is yes. So, but we are in conversation. We've been very, very closely working with some of the philanthropic organisations that support the philanthropic sector, specifically because this throws a bit of a curveball for many of those organisations. So we are working with them to make sure that what we implement is suitable, adequate, and we're actually meeting with one of those organisations this afternoon. So it is continual dialogue. It's a work in progress, but to answer your question, it would be yes. But the way that we're hoping we will implement the related party transactions reporting will be in a way that is not going to be unreasonable for organisations to comply with. So we're trying to do it simply. Because we've just had consultation, I can't really go into more detail, but we're very aware that this is quite a unique aspect of the sector. And so we don't want to implement it in a way that sort of, creates landlocked everywhere. Yeah.
Sorry, I think I misunderstood your question. That's much better.
Well, thank you, wrap up there.
So,
So now, I have to leave us not too distant future. We're going to grab some lunch before we go. The first one is in relation to the WASE, it's really Accounting Standards Board, all right? So whatever, we're going to get into technical detail and any of this. But what they've got just now is a discussion paper out for differential reporting. And what they've based that, they've looked at the ACNC definition of what medium charity, 500,000 to just under 3 million, and looking at potential differential reporting for them. And some of the key changes with the consolidation, the need to consolidate subsidiaries, and the recognition of income, how we recognise income or matching the income. And leases up there, so many in the room like have to do lease accounting. The option not to do lease accounting, so you don't actually need to have those asset liabilities. You just go back to your own monthly expense of the rent. Some of these. That's some of the things that they're looking at. Now, this is a project just now, it's a discussion paper. It's still open for comment up to the 31st of March. There's 9 days left, by my reckoning. So if you want to make any comments to the WSD, go to their website. They've got a section on this. You can reach out to us. We can send you a link to that if you want us to also talk to them on your behalf. It's a great opportunity for those charities. So 500,000. It's up to the. Because it's going to apply to not-for-profits and other regulators in the ACNC. It's up to the respective regulator what this is going to apply to, but they're looking at it from the ACNC regional charity perspective, 500,000 just under 3 million. So could be make life more simpler for some of you in the room. So if you've got any comments, we'll look at that. The other one that the WSC is the post-implementation review of the income for not-for-profits. That's WSC 1058. Now, we've talked a lot of our clients and what we're in the room is there angst caused by that in the past. What that means is very high level. The income has to be recorded on receipt unless it's enforceable. You have to pay it back, okay? Or it's sufficient and it's sufficiently specific. That's it costs a lot of angst. So what it means is that charity gets money from a government department, the 30th of June, the government budget. They may have to recognise this income. One, which means a huge surplus 1 year and a big deficit the next in relation to that income. So that's not there. This doesn't make sense. You always get looking at this for this sufficiently specific part is very judgmental. It has to be sufficiently specific, so I think quite a lot of details of what this money is for. And sometimes government contracts don't go into that level of detail, especially if the money is different in the 30th of June. So that's another that post implementation review is ongoing just now. Again, it closes 31st of March. So 9 days. So if you've got any interest in that, reach out to us or reach out to the WSP. Next one I want to talk about is Info Exchange. They did a survey technology in the ENFP sector, which is a look at technology, how much has changed over the last 12 months. So they had some interesting benchmarks, which I will share a few of them with you. First one is so not-for-profits, 78% don't have systems that they need to understand technology's impact. It's scary. 53% don't provide cybersecurity awareness training to staff. It's scary. Cyber teach one. 51% don't have information security policy. And that's a bit scary. And the last one, more than 1 fee, or last one that Shelley today, there's many others. More than 1 in 3 organizations get multi-factor authentication. Will get scary. So what that means, and that goes on to the next one, the cybersecurity is very topical just now. A lot of people are talking to us, clients have talked to us about this. Obviously, there's been the Associated Press, the Medibank, Optus, the Smith family as well. You look at the charity sector have been impacted by this. If you look at the communication that Smith family put out, this is fantastic. And then you might question some of the communication that the other organizations put out, where it's a bit muddled. But the real issue here is it's why we're seeing the big end of town. The end of town is going to have all the money they can invest in new policies, controls, and they're getting hacked. So it's the work down the line, but the organisations don't have that, they want the funds, the resources to invest big into that. It's a big service, privacy legislation requirements, there's the damage to reputation, loss of confidence, potential donors, governments. It's a huge thing just now, and it's something that the sector is very conscious of. And it's probably the biggest question that our clients are asking just now, sort of outside the reviews, what level of shoes we've done of that, what are we meeting the best practice? The last one I just wanted to talk briefly about is one that's been mentioned before, but it's still pretty topical, and that's to do with payroll compliance. So the Fair Work Ombudsman is looking very closely at this. There's been a few high-profile cases in recent years, for-profit and not-for-profit space. It's exceptionally complex. So look at awards, certain awards, exceptionally complex. You look at the awards, they think they're paying the right amount, but maybe that employee should be paid under a different award. You look at overtime, entry rates, allowances, it's very complicated, and it can add up very quickly, So you may say, oh, I'm really paying $1 or $2 here, but go down for a number of years, then a number of employees, you can be talking millions of dollars, and then on top of that, ones that we've seen is it's been self-reported to Fair Work, and there's been postal undertakings that have been undertaken. What it also resulted in for many of these charities, the costs, it's recruiting more people, contractors, and employees to go and work out what the issue is, for the underpayment. Then there's the actual payment, so the payment of the underpayment, the salaries, the super, the interest, top of that. And then there's ongoing compliance. Fair Work will often say you've got to get an ongoing audit, that you've got to develop all your policies to show this isn't going to happen again. That could be a huge cost on top of just the underpayment of wages. It's something that's still creating issues, the complexity of it. A lot of people think we'll be all right, but the complexity of it is often you think we're all right, you might not be. It's just exceptionally complex. So that's top 5 top topics I just want to talk to you very briefly about. Now, before I pass over to Kim, we've got to Mel and Sue to leave us very shortly for another appointment. So would you like to join me once again, just thank you again for the ACNC. So we do this event, we do a number of events throughout the year, and this one is one of the application this time of year. It's always the one that's the numbers are highest. It's the most popular one. Make people get the most. I really want to see the ACNC. Think it's great that the ACNC is willing to engage with them. So it's really fantastic to have them here today. And we appreciate it. And thanks for coming up. And we're busy afternoon, I understand. So we'll stand in your way. Thank you. Sorry, yes. Okay, thanks, Kim. We do have, before we wrap up, we've got time to mingle here. I think it's for half 2 or so. So you can more than happy for you to network, chat to other people. But if anyone does have, if you do have time for Q&A, or if anyone wants to raise any issues they want to share in the room, or any war stories they want to develop with us, this is a chance to do that. So please, do you have anything? Raise your hand. Yes, we've got. I
think you could just maybe speak a little bit about what the responsibility of a CEO and a board are to do with cybersecurity. Do you have any comment about how serious it is?
Yeah, well, ultimately, the boards are the responsible persons. I think a charity, and they're the ones that are in the box office and the board. So if there's something that goes wrong, the board are the ones that have to answer those questions as to why. Now, it could be a case of, well, we didn't have someone responsible for that. I'm personally responsible for their job, but the boards are the ones ultimately responsible for doing that and managing the mistake. So the board have done their job, which is to protect those if it's personal data you've got, it's the Privacy Act, you will put the legislation to speak with a lawyer, John, here, we can talk about all that kind of stuff. But if ultimately we're going to get responsible for that, the CEO and the directors have been employed to do that role. But ultimately, it's up to the board, they've got to make sure the processes and controls in place to reduce the risk of any personal data that we have, or any other confidential information that would be good. So it's not just reputation, it's the issues with the layers as well.
The CEO of Office City Jail or anything, so what it be like? There is some responsibilities. Is there insurance level that you need to maintain?
It's a question for a lawyer. Cyber insurance, we spoken with our clients about cyber insurance and the issue you consider it. You're not an insurance expert, but we can't make that decision. But it is something that we say to clients should be considering it, documenting to get to see the broker, we get cost benefit of whether it's worth it or not. But the comment that the CEO has gone to jail was changed as a result of what has happened there. I can't comment what's going to happen because of that, but will someone go to jail? I don't know, but there is going to be, I'd imagine there's going to be much distribution requirements. They might think they're looking at all this, which means that the next person that has to, we can't just say, oh, like the office CEO, we need to deal.
I'll just make a comment on that. The AICD recently published principles for cybersecurity. So if you go on their website, you can download that, and it's pretty much a shared responsibility.
And can I say though, that the services that the AICD was actually through right here. If they said that now it's Phil Butler, along they want us to eat if that may want to make further comment, that they said that as a standing agenda item on all meetings, that under the risk component should be cyber security. About what were the other points that Phil Butler raised in that report? Because you've just issued that again, haven't you?
CBA, sorry. We'll put the CBA link inside where we've got quite a bit of information about cyber security and how to protect your business. So I think that's got quite a lot of information there, and it's really being focused CBA in terms of cyber security. So I think you'll find a lot of information on our website as well, which will probably be guidance and some information shared with the board as well. It is right, it is building and that's the climate targeted from the bank's perspective. We get that to recover, but we do try to parameters now security levels. Share some information on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Great up on that.
So if you're not having the LinkedIn, the ENFP group, which I can, it's a closed group, anyone can join, so which I can actually as a member. We've also seen it from clients as well in the last couple of years before all the office radio bank stuff, whether it was cyber attacks, and it was emails, where somebody clicked an email and then the police clicked an email and encrypted all their on that thing. And so they pay a ransom or go to backup, and they went to backup, and the backup actually took a lot longer than tested the backup for a while, and it took one of them, it took over a week to get my money, which didn't do much for the week. It was huge in the cost. So it's not just the risk of a cyber attack, it's how we maybe allow you to respond to that. A backup and get up and running right away. Because you can, you just the backup's going to work, that'll be fine. It's not a backup, the data may be backed up, it might not be one that you just push the button. It's also Ken, and we'll pass what we should do to wrap up.
HLB manager twice a year launch and publish two major pieces of thought leadership. The first piece is financial management and the second is strategic planning. Now we have launched our strategic planning survey. Nicola, we're currently 80 people participate. We would really like to see if we can get 100 people, because the more people that participate, the better the data you know, the greater the impact that we will have on the sector. So if you'd like to take one of these little cards back with you, and share that with your team, because we would really love you to participate. On the 27th of April, which is our next ENFP event, we will be presenting the strategic plan in the report, and all of its contents, findings, reviews. 20th of April, we will be hosting our annual FBT update presented by Mariana Von-Lucan, our tax consultant partner, who's here today. Invitations have been sent for that event. If you've not received the invitation, please contact me. And if you are interested in joining our ENFP community LinkedIn group, which you may not have at this point in time, please come back to me, because on that LinkedIn group, we upload all of our webinars, all seminars, all of our publications and communications. And this little group, as you know, has been going since 2010. So, you know, there's some amazing information there, similar to the website of the ACNC, like HLB, Combank and LinkedIn group, in terms of what's there. So please go onto that and download, you know, whatever information that you see fit. Well, that's it. That's the end of our day. It was fabulous having you all here. This is the first time we've actually done an external venue coming to Dockside. As you know, I would normally have you all sitting at HLB Man Judd's boardroom, you know, that's seated 110 to 120 of you, and we all enjoyed the natter, the chatter, the food and the beverages. We're in our new premises now. We have a boardroom that seats 20. It's a bit more intimate, so we'll maybe do some smaller intimate events for you. But downstairs we have an auditorium, and the auditorium hosts about 90 people. But we just thought to start the year and start it well and get everybody back together, because it's been such a long time since we've really seen each other, and you know, people on the table chatting to each other about things that they've been doing. So this is how we all learn. And looking at collaboration, we thought, well, why not? I'll break the budget. Dockside, and no one's telling me not to. So hopefully the partners are looking at me in the room going, this is fine, no problem. So thank you, everyone. Tea and coffee is being served, and please stay and network, because we've got till about 2:30.